answer from a lot of people that can't attend the session. Are you recording it? So yes. And I guess a newsletter is going to go out from Keith, and we'll have a link to this recording. So thank you, everyone who's here live, some very familiar names, and those who will be listening or watching the recording later on. So this is the official, I guess, kickstart, restart of the ATA program. And let me kind of summarize everything in a sentence or two to begin with, so you know where we're going. And that is, after all these years, I know Vern and Keith have really been strong advocates for top grading for many years. And we've always said we think it's the best hiring approach on the planet, the best hiring approach ever created. We're all the more convinced that's true. I think, as some of you know, in growing the company, we have very sophisticated software now that produces the snapshot and the interview guides and so forth. I'll tell you about that during the session. But as we're getting involved with the HR world more than ever, we're absolutely convinced that top grading is the best method for hiring, and it is not even close. So if you go to the websites or any of the other vendors in the hiring world, zillion testing companies, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry, other interviewing sort of approaches, their case studies are nothing compared to ours. So we think we have the best hiring method by far, also have the best candidate screening tool. And we're going to give it away for a free trial to all your clients. You know, the top grading snapshot is extremely useful, powerful, effective. Go through some of the details of that. So still the best hiring method. We think the best candidate screening tool. So the only people you talk with face to face have been thoroughly screened. They're the best candidates for sure. And it's a slightly touchy subject, but we went into hiatus mode last year because we'd gotten a lot of indications that your clients are borrowing top grading intellectual property, you know, and Vern and Keith are pretty adamant, you can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. Frankly, I blame myself for that because in the manual, and I'll tell you how to get the upgraded manual, is just loaded with really free materials. And so your clients need not buy a license, even though the licenses are dirt cheap. They can get a whole lot of value just by reading my book or things you might share outside the manual. Now, having said that, okay, we really want to provide a nice carrot to your clients. 2-month free trial, and frankly, that could be extended under circumstances that justify it. They can try it and see how they like it. Pleased to say that Rick Crossman is joining us, and he would like to share with you what his experience has been with tolls and top grading. I think you probably all know that he has a new book out, The A Player, terrific book. All your clients should get that book. So he's very experienced, and I'll go through my presentation, which will be a bit on where top grading is. This is not an introduction to top grading webinar. If your clients need one, we can provide that for them. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Just kind of a quick overview of where we are, and then most of the time we'll be on the top grading snapshot, our software. Okay, then I'd like to turn it over to Rick and tell you about his experiences. We'll open up to Q&A. So, okay, let's jump into it now. By way of introduction, I'm hitting the different keys here. It's a little slow to process. So why relaunch it? Several of you, including Rick, have gone through the agonizing steps of getting a really, truly sophisticated platform for top grading online solutions, tolls. Going back 6-7 years, I contracted with some people who did a good job. It was plain vanilla. And wanting to upgrade, we went through a couple of stutter steps. Got a really sharp A player who was off and running, but after a few months there was a death in his family. He had to stop working, gave us some money back, so we lost some time there. But where we are with Tolls 3.0 is here. We released it, 4 or 5 months ago. Over 100 companies are on it. They really like it. The improved functionality for your clients is huge. Works, it's secure, it's safe. It's so good that we're integrating with all the top applicant tracking systems, ATSs. And I know most of your clients don't have ATSs. Companies with 300 more employees tend to have those. But the importance to you is two things. One is this is a sophisticated platform. It'll work. It's working. There's improved functionality, and I'm going to continue improving the functionality from two standpoints indefinitely. One is from the candidate standpoint. Okay, so they don't have to take much time to complete the career history form that produces the snapshots and the interview guides. All right, so stay tuned for that. It's already happening. And then from the user side, that's your clients. They have maybe an executive assistant. If they're large enough, it's maybe they have someone in human resources. From their standpoint, we've listened to what they want in improved functionality. We already have it in 3.0, and we're going to continue on about an 8-week cycle of adding functions. So we'll get better and better and better. The bottom line from your client standpoint is they can save a heck of a lot of time. We have one case study that suggests 25% of hiring time is saved with Tolls because the torque technique scares away the low performers and the BSers. Good, we didn't want to mess around with them anyway, but that's hugely time consuming and costly if you don't use Tolls. Well, of course, our intellectual property uses Tolls. Saves time, but the main thing is it gets the best of the best candidates in for your clients. It is absolutely huge. So we encourage you to encourage them to take advantage of the free offer. Already said, top grading still is the best. We've had several people, I don't know why this is coming, maybe it's because of Super Bowl time or something like that, but just in the past week, at least 3 clients have said, you know, when it comes to hiring, there's one NFL team, okay, that's top grading. There aren't any college teams, all right? It goes all the way down to high school. Really Mickey Mouse, ineffective, wasteful, time-consuming methods that produce 75% mishires, and that is the truth. That's throughout the world. Boy, we've been doing the research on that for decades, okay? Be embarrassed to do what I do. I had a webinar last week with hundreds of people on it that was kind of an introduction to top grading, and I challenged everyone, if you know of any hiring approach that comes within a million country miles of top grading, please let me know. And I've done that live in front of 600 CEOs here in Phoenix, and never, not once has anyone come back and said that they have an approach or they've heard of approach or directed us to an approach that is anywhere close to what top grading provides. So I know, looking at your names here on the roster, I'm preaching to the choir here, so I'll move on. The top grading snapshot, I think, well, I know most of you on the roster are familiar with that. I'll be going through that, and it's a whole lot better than any other approach. And I'm going to step on toes a little bit because I know a lot of you with your clients have used various personality tests, and you've heard my little rant on that, but I'll give you a short one here. I would bet my right arm and left arm right now there isn't a personality test used for selection, meaning there are cutoff scores. And if the candidate is below the cutoff score, they don't get the job, okay? I don't know of anyone with those personality tests that is not more harmful than helpful. It's not just neutral. If they screen out candidates, my rather extensive experience properly validating personality tests for hiring, if they eliminate any candidates, they eliminate A players right along with the C players. And this gets a little technical, sort of the PhD kind of stuff, but I've had like multi-year projects with mega firms like the Home Depot, when they thought they had some personality tests that worked, I validated them properly, meaning when candidates applied, they did not know they had a job. They were applying for a job, and so they put their best foot forward in the personality test. All right. When they do that, then the validity wipes out to 0. I think there's a lot of use for abilities tests, no problem there. Culture fit tests, no problem there. Okay. And after people are hired, so they have no reason to BS, and they answer the personality test questions honestly, then those are fine. So for onboarding, for team building and so forth, okay. But for screening candidates, it's a snapshot. It's a top grading snapshot. Now, I think of, I've been to a couple of your bigger meetings, and you've heard me say what I'm about to say now. The big mega companies made top grading famous, and I drop the names all the time, even though the vast majority of our clients are SMBs. They're your clients. We love small companies. We are a small company. Love it when the owners of the company say, I'm in business because of top grading, or I frankly, my growth was not really logarithmic until I embraced top grading. I'd love to hear those stories. You see this little circular logo over here, so I'll just do a little bit of this. General Electric, the only reason we're talking today is because of what GE did in the 1990s. Under Jack Welch, embraced top grading, GE was experiencing 25% success hiring and promoting people. Fortune 500 companies all are in that same ballpark. Only 25% of the people they hire externally or they promote internally, obviously, turn out to be the high performers they hoped for, expected, and figured they paid for. GE, I was outsourcing to a bunch of other professionals, and Jack Welch said, there aren't enough of you top grading professionals. You're doing great work. Well over 90% of the people you recommend for hire turn out to be A players, 6 months, a year later. Teach us to do it. And we taught, train the trainers. We taught trainers who taught trainers who taught hundreds and then thousands of managers at GE, and they went from 25 to 90% A players hired and promoted. GE became the most valuable company in the world, the most respected company in the world. Jack, the most respected CEO, and a lot of other companies got on board, and we did rollouts for all these companies and frankly hundreds more. All right. The trouble was and is, when the CEOs left, a new CEO would come in, and they bring in their HR person who is scared to death of top grading, never really led anything of that import, frankly, and they dropped top grading. So GE went back to the old methods of hiring, and from what I hear, with some pretty close associates there, they've gone from 90 to 80 to 70 to 60 back into the 20s for hiring success. Stock has not done particularly well either. One other case that I will mention is Culligan, because I've talked with a lot of you guys who said, yeah, my clients sort of believe in top grading, but it sounds so complicated. It really isn't. Get a license, get your people trained, all right, use the snapshot to screen people, use the interview guides to interview, and that is it. Scott Clausen is the CEO of Culligan. He entered the Culligan, but he took a little vacation, 3 months. So he was hired as CEO, but he didn't show up for another 3 months. During that 3-month period, he dispatched his long-time head of human resources to go to Culligan in Chicago, get Chris Mersaw to run the 2-day workshops, as he did last week in Dallas, got all the managers trained. They only have 1,200 employees at Culligan, by the way, okay? So it wasn't all that difficult, 120 to train, something like that. Got the license. They implemented top grading. This is the hiring methodology. So once trained, all those managers used tandem top grading interviews to screen candidates. Candidates would arrange the reference calls. They do the reference calls. Up front, they use a snapshot to screen people. Pretty easy, frankly. Pretty easy. Excuse me. So those are the big companies. You're familiar with a bunch of these companies, but literally, I think there are probably hundreds in the SMB world who have significantly rolled out top grading. And let me make this proposal to you, or an offer. If any of your clients would say that the company is more profitable, more successful because of top grading, and it's standard policy to use the snapshot to screen people, candidates, the top grading interviews to get really under the covers, find out what they're made of with respect to all competencies, and reference checks are organized by the candidates and conducted obviously by the company. If they're doing those things and the company, in the owner's opinion, is more successful because of top grading, let me know. I'd love to talk with them if they'd like to become a case study at www.topgradingcasestudies.com. We're adding companies all the time, and it's really good visibility. If you want to hire A players, top grade, the social media are all over it. Candidates will realize that you're a very special company if you top grade, and that's why so many companies have wanted to be on www.topgradingcasestudies.com. More about that right now. If you see in blue right here, www.topgradingcasestudies.com. Started that in preparation for my 2012 third edition of Top Grading, which was New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller. But the publisher didn't want to publish 400 pages of case studies. So I said, why don't we just put the short case studies in the book, maybe 3 or 4 long ones, but have the rest online. They can be updated at any point. They said, good idea. So you, I hope, know this, and your clients know that. If any of your company owners have any doubts about whether top grading is the best, just have them go to www.topgradingcasestudies.com. What comes up first is the master chart. It lists all the companies by name. GE is the biggest. I think Mint.com is probably the smallest. They have 40 people. Aaron Patzer said if I hadn't top graded, Mint.com would have failed, but I did top grade it, and I sold my company to Intuit for $170 million. He's been kind of a special advisor to me. Works with all companies everywhere. I talked not too long ago with Michelle LaValle, and she and I might do a book together, because she said, I've done top grading all over the world, works with every size company, every industry, every country, and that might be an interesting book with a bunch of case studies with a color commentary in there about how you face the challenges, what are the downsides, what are the risks, and all that, and then of course what are the successes. So here it is. Across all those companies, the average pre-top grading was 26% success. That means 26% of the people we hired turned out to be the high performers we not just hoped for, but we fully expected and figured we paid for. If the only other category is a mishire. If I didn't get what I paid for, I'll say that's a mishire. 26, and then with top grading, 85% success. And a lot of the companies, it's for all jobs, receptionists, clerks, CEO, everything. 26 to 85%. And then if your clients want to click on any of those case studies, they can see some really long ones, some mid-sized and short ones, but they can see comments, they can see advice from all the CEOs. The most common advice from all the CEOs was, if you're thinking about top grading, learn it and don't cut corners. If you cut corners, you'll have more mishires, and mishires are very, very costly. By the way, in just recent months, we had 2 case studies come in. Culligan, I just mentioned a few minutes ago. I have a quote by Scott Clausen in a moment. But he took over Culligan. I told you, he didn't show up for 3 months. Top grading was already implemented. Culligan was sold 2 years later, which is about 4 months ago, by the way, to another private equity company, sold at 10 times what the original private equity company paid for Culligan a little over 2 years ago. Woo! Now that is increase profits. So welcome, Culligan. You're a great case study. E-Trade, the CEO of E-Trade says, you can just read the quote from Paul Itzik. He said, the company would have gone out of business. E-Trade would not exist if it hadn't been for top grading. We're in that much trouble. Okay, now get on to the snapshot here. Here's this quote by Scott Clausen. Because some of the people who will be tuning into this recording will be driving their car or something at the time, I'll just read it. At Culligan, we've rolled out the top grading online forms and guides called tools, and they are hugely effective and helpful. The top grading snapshot is amazing. You can know the candidate's performance ratings by all bosses and the full comp history even before talking with a candidate. Once you start talking to candidates, then it's more time consuming. And what we found out through literally millions of reference calls organized by candidates, okay, but clients have done those reference calls for many decades, and they always say that it's amazingly how accurate the guesses are. When you ask candidates, how do you think Joe Smith would rate your overall performance 5 years ago, they're amazingly accurate. In that webinar I did last week with hundreds of people on it, head of talent for MarineMax, largest boat dealer company in the United States, made this comment. He said, it's amazing how accurate those are. So having accurate boss ratings is really powerful. Anyway, let's move on. Here's what people do when they, in order to get the snapshot. I think probably all of you know that candidates fill out the top grading career history form. All you do is, okay, you ask them to fill it out, send them the link. They fill out. It's a standard application form, except it has some other things, like their compensation for every job, the name of their boss, because as you said, one of the final steps in hiring is for the candidate to arrange reference calls with all bosses in the past decade. Here's the title of the person, and also you see down here, maybe we have, maybe we talk to the person. Sometimes yes, they say now, sometimes not yet, but that's it. There's also we didn't have space on the slide to show it, but it's well, we do have it here. Not leaving. They have lots of choices here. It could be fired, terminated for cause, or it was mutual, or whatever. This is a good response, obviously, if they're not leaving, okay, you're going after a passive candidate. So they fill out the application form, which is our career history form. More and more clients, and this is a really strong message, they want to minimize the time it takes for candidates to complete it, okay? So here are a couple solutions to that problem, all right? One is, if they're active candidates, they're looking for a job, you can probably ask them to fill out the whole career history form, and they'll do it. They're desperate. They want to find a job, okay? But for those passive candidates, people you've known, people you've stayed in touch with, you have to woo them. You have to have a breakfast. You have to have lunches. You have to stay in touch. What I've said since my first top grading book back in 1986 was, don't ask them to complete the career history form until they're willing to spend a day with you. At that point, sure, you can tell them about top grading, fill out the form, it'll make the day with us much more productive. No problem there. Here's an in-between approach. You, meaning your clients, are just not getting enough resumes, enough applicants. They can do it right now, today. Our software will permit them to determine just clients. Listen to this, okay? For your candidates, you can ask candidates to complete the career history form only on the most recent 2 jobs. There are a bunch of companies doing it. Only 2 jobs. That won't take much time, okay? Then you look at the snapshot across 2 jobs. You can see if they're a job hopper. You can see if they're at the right salary range. You can see how their bosses would rate them in real life. Excuse me. And then you might call them, or you might get back to them and say, hey, thank you for completing part of our application form. We're interested in talking with you, but first, would you please complete the rest? So it's a two-step process. If you want to get, frankly, more candidates to complete the career history form, start by just asking them to provide information for the two most recent jobs. They'll save it. Later, you can ask them about the others. So when they present, then your client gets this. They get the top grading snapshot. I'll go through this quickly. I think most of you have seen this. This is really cool. First of all, you'll see snapshots of sharp people more than not sharp people, because in the instructions it says a final step in hiring is for candidates to arrange reference calls with former managers and others. The low performers, the BSers, drop out. So here at a glance we have, okay, compensation here. You can see compensation has gone up for this candidate across. Here are the years. Only two colors, only two jobs, okay? So you see steady growth in comp, that's good. Not a job hopper, that's good. What you want in these two rows is green, because here are the rating scales. When you ask, how would Joe Smith rate your overall performance, they have to click excellent, very good, good, fair, poor, or for some reason, impossible, provide, explain, don't have a boss, my boss dropped dead, or something like that. What we found over the decades is A players are in the green area. They'll say they're excellent. They'll be a little bit on the conservative, arrange a call with a person. They don't want to overshoot and say, oh, Joe Smith would say my performance is excellent, when Joe Smith is a pretty hard rater, but he'd say I'm very good. What you've heard me say before, I'll say again right now, is good is not good. Good is not good. Suppose you were interviewing a candidate and you say, okay, you've had 8 bosses, and how would each of your bosses rate your overall performance? Of course, in a chronological interview, you'd ask that question as you get to each job. But just to make this point, suppose the candidate said, let's see, of my 8 bosses, I don't think any of them would rate my overall performance excellent. Let me think about this. I don't think anyone would rate me very good, but I think all 8 of my managers would rate my performance good. Don't let your clients hire someone who says all their bosses would rate them good, because that is not an A player, okay? Not a high performer. Same with over here, reasons for leaving. A players tend to leave when it's their own choice. Passive candidates, you go after, they leave of their own choice. Green is good, okay? Maybe a buyout, maybe a layoff are okay. If they're not leaving, that's okay. But if it's a mutual decision, or maybe some other circumstances, or if it's red, terminated for cause, not good enough. Okay, here is a snapshot. And if your client said, okay, I've been using this now for a few weeks, okay, coach, let's look at these snapshots, and you saw this snapshot, you'd probably say, no way, Jose. Okay, so person attended the University of Illinois, 04, 06, I have a job, got a job first in 2008, 2 years later another job, 2 years later another job, 2 years later another job. Whoa, this is looking like a job hopper. Out of work here, 2014, not too good. Out of work now, not too cool. And how about boss ratings? Ooh, good, good, good. Not good. Good is not good. Reasons for leaving, it was mutual here, and terminated for cause. Now this is an easy one. So you get the point. That's why this is so cool. Saves you time. It only takes seconds for the owner of your company, the hiring managers in your client companies, to figure out if this is a person they want to talk with. And if suppose they're hiring a sales rep, they had 25 resumes, the executive assistant or HR sends them a link, they fill it out. You won't get 25 snapshots back because the low performers and BSers have dropped out. Suppose you get 16 back, and then you go through them. The executive assistant could be standing right next to you, bing, 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 okay, going through these, eliminate, and you get down to, as I said earlier, maybe 3 or 4. These are the best of the 25 for sure. Arrange phone screens for them, okay? Now let's get to, we're at the midway point. Here's the overview of the program. And this is a repeat, but I'll tell you what's new, like the free trial and so forth, and just a refresher of how easy it is to get set up to do this stuff. One, we want to help clients. All right, forget all this if we can't help our clients. Second is a revenue stream. You're not going to get rich with the commissions, but you get rewarded. You get your clients involved with this, and most of them pick up on top grading. They go to the workshop maybe, or they, at the minimum, they get the license to be able to use our intellectual property. You'll get some money, okay? And the vision of Top Grade the World is my vision. And where it comes from is with all those global 100 companies embracing top grade, I thought, this is it. My little contribution to the world. It's not exactly a cure for cancer, but boy, it helps companies survive and flourish. It helps individual managers. When they learn top grading, they have A teams rather than a mixture of ABC teams. And everything goes better with Coke, which I just took a sip of, by the way. But it didn't work. It didn't work. As CEOs of GE, Barclays, of Honeywell, American Heart Association, on and on and on. As they left, the new CEO comes in, they bring in their HR people, scared to death, you know, and they go back to their old ways. So that's why I'm doing it. And it's fun to keep doing this stuff. Okay, here are your commissions. Cost roughly $3,000 if one person goes to a workshop. So you get, you know, $300. Generally, there are 2 people who go. That's good. Okay, love for the owners of the companies to go to the workshops, and they get it. That happened just last week in Dallas. There were 5 company owners. Every one of them is getting the license. They're moving forward with top grading. Okay, for the license, the total's license, 10% of the first year, 5% in the second year, so obviously 15%. For very small companies, they can buy 10 packs of snapshots, you know, for $250. It's kind of a loss leader, and we're eventually going to automate that whole process, so no salespeople are involved. So this is very manual, it's very inefficient. Professional services, if there's a company with 30, 40 people opening for a chief financial officer, the wrong hire there could kill the company. They might want to hire a top grading professional. We have top grading professionals now in different categories, okay, including a bench now of 4 or 5 Gazelles International coaches who, current or former, who are willing to do top grading interviews and things, and it's at a much, much lower price. So the price for me is $15,000. It can be as inexpensive as $2,500 for a top grading interview. These can be done virtually. They can be done via GoToMeeting. The owner of the company or the key manager can be on the call. Boy, do they watch a master at work doing a top grading interview. They can participate, encourage to participate, and get some feedback and so forth. For a large enough company, you get 7, 8 managers who need to be trained, and it's cheaper to have an on-site workshop, probably conducted by Chris Mursaw. Okay, you see at the bottom here, here's what you're going to get. As soon as this webinar is over, and as soon as others watch it in the next few weeks, they'll receive a new 2-year agreement, same as the other one, except it's a new 2-year agreement, effective today. You'll get your new ATA referral ID because your clients get a 5% discount. Okay, so they buy anything from us. You know, the substance is not a book, but buy the license, go to a workshop, and so forth. They get a 5% discount. In order for them to get the discount, they need to enter their ID. Okay, it's not huge, but that's something. But the thing is, when their ID is entered, then you get the credit. We have this nice kind of partnership agent software that some of you used in the past. So you log in, you can see if your clients have bought anything and what your commissions are. Okay, so all that's coming in an email. And did make some changes to the manual. It's still loaded with good stuff, but when you log in, as an ATA, then you can see the electronic version of the manual with all the good stuff in there. So our responsibility is keep the ATA program going. webinars. Keith has been nice enough to say newsletters. Every newsletter can have something in there about the ATA program. If there's new content, obviously pass that on. Pay you promptly, okay? So, and you have access to the reports. Just log in and you get that information. Want you to have an excellent experience with your clients. Rick is one. He's going to be on here in a few minutes. And he knows if a client, something happens where the software isn't working or something like that, let us know. We have full coverage now, 24/7, for being sure that the software works and so forth. Or they just have any questions about top grading. Chris and I and several other top grading professionals are compulsive about that. I just don't go to bed at night. If I see some emails, someone has a question about top grading, I respond. Okay, if I'm traveling, it might not be for a couple days, but we are customer service oriented. Okay, something else we'll do is consummate sales. You as ATAs don't have to be in the sales mode as I am right now. You just expose your clients to top grading. If they're interested, they want to talk to one of our professionals or a sales rep or something, we'll close the sales. All right. So if you're uncomfortable with that role, then introduce top grading using a lot of those materials in the manual. Don't sell if you don't want to. A lot of you are good at it, though. Say, do it. We work with you on strategy. Strategy is not going to work as well with the team you have. It's one of the things that I'll show you in just a minute that you can do with them is go through their assessments of their team. And if it's 20, if they have one A player and a couple of B players, one C player, and that's their management team, that's not likely to be a growth company. And help them think through making those changes could be the most important thing you do. So you get your affiliate ID, your clients get the 5% discount. Yeah, become familiar with top grading. Just go to the manual, read my book, the 2012 book. It's all common sense. Everything is common sense, nothing mysterious about it. But over a period of 4 decades, there's some bells and whistles and things that are worthwhile knowing. For example, most job descriptions are so ambiguous. Candidates take a job and that leads to mishires. They didn't know what the job really was. Maybe your client hadn't really thought it through. By thinking it through so you can articulate measurable accountabilities, okay, that's a job scorecard. Do that somewhat bureaucratic step before hiring someone. Share that information with the candidate, and you'll have a better record of hiring. Okay? You connect us to, or connect your clients to us and provide us feedback. What is liked, what is not liked, and we'll be with you there. Before introducing Rick and Dana, yesterday, by the way, I'm going to apologize now. We were having a little trouble with GoToMeeting, and my techie put me on the latest version of it. I had an old version, so I still don't see who's on. Is Rick? Is he registered? Is he on the GoToMeeting, Dana?
He is, and I'm
here, Brad.
Okay, good. Hang on for just a second then, Rick. Let me just go through this. It's a long ATA manual. So one of the things that's right up there that you might just hand to a client is a brief summary of top grading, a couple pages. Our ebook, we would, 101, 201, 301, now it's 401. It gets shorter and a little punchier. They can go to topgrading.com and download that. Or you can print it out for them and hand it to them. Or for $7 is a hard copy version. Okay. Oh, every one of your clients ought to be using the TORC technique. TORC stands for Threat of Reference Check. I wish I could patent that. I'd be very rich today. It's just tell candidates right out of the starting gate. Even haven't put it on their website. A final step in hiring is for candidates to arrange reference calls with former managers and others. As I said, that case studies are showing that 25% of candidates drop out. And when they track them down, they find out those were the BSers, those were the low performers, those are the ones with the fictitious resumes, and they were just ready to BS their way through interviews. Okay. In the manual, there are several different definitions of ABC players, and feel free to copy these. Go through some of that discussion with your clients. for their key people or for all the people. Who are the A's, who are the B's, or the C's? It's really helpful. If you Google cost of mishire form, the top grading cost of mishire form comes up again and again and again. It's a checklist. Go through an exercise with your client about a mishire. Say, okay, so that manager didn't work out. How costly do you think it was? I don't know, we paid him $100,000. It's probably, I don't know, the costs were probably $50,000. Oh yeah? Walk them through this form. It'll take 15, 20 minutes and watch them get to $250,000. The cost of mishires are much, much bigger than what people think ordinarily. A talent review sheet, it's right there. There's a nice template through it. And if you go through the talent of their key players, or if there's a small company, 8 or 10 people, do it with everyone. What are the pluses and minuses and so forth? It gets to, should they keep this person or not? Those are really some of the most important decisions. By the way, Scott Clausen at Culligan, frankly, he went in and he changed half the managers. Half the managers reporting to him. There's about a dozen people reporting to him, and half of them he changed, frankly, within months. And what's the outcome? Sold the company 10 times what they paid for. Okay. Sample job scorecards. I mentioned, boy, if you can get measurable accountabilities, you lessen, your clients will lessen their mishires. Okay, there's some samples there. And management competency. Okay. What should we be looking at as the competencies for management? And it's scary to begin with because we have 50. And for every workshop, we've done probably 1,000 workshops. We say, oh, wow, it's such a long list. How many people here in the room think you can track 50 competencies? Nobody. How about 25 competencies? Nobody. How about 15 competencies? 2 out of 40 hands go up. It seems daunting. As Rick will probably tell you in a few minutes, it's not daunting. If you do the top grading interviews, you get thousands of data points, and you can really peg people across literally dozens of competencies. You have to, in order to hire someone who's a high performer who's going to stay with you for years. You can't overlook any of these competencies, and it is not daunting. So help me out here, Rick. Rick, I assume you all know who Rick Crossman is, and let him introduce himself. But he and I have been in touch. Love his book. Have a bit of a contribution to him, to that book. And he's been working for about 4 years with a bunch of clients. Quite an active proponent of top grading, but I'll let him tell you about this. So thank you very much, Rick, for joining us. So give your story.
Well, thank you, Brad, and it's a pleasure to share with my other Gazelles coaches. I've been affiliated with Gazelles, I want to say it's going on 6 years this spring, and I've been affiliated with Top Grading for around 4 years as well. It's I would say those two affiliations have been probably the two best things I've done in my business. I've been a very successful coach for 9 years, and I found the discussion years ago was going towards top talent. Through Brad and Vern, or pardon me, through Vern and Keith, I was introduced to Brad and Top Grading. Chuck Kocher actually turned me on to, he goes, you got to read the book, as you know Chuck would do. And I read the book, and I was like, my goodness, this makes perfect sense. And I started implementing it. And shortly after, I did the Tolles online tool, turned my clients onto it, and I found CEOs had an immediate appetite to talk for talent. And a little aside there, I found years ago that you couldn't prescribe every action a business owner was going to take. And the secret was really to get great people. And all of our discussions are around A players. Thanks to Brad's abundance, my business actually called A Player Advantage. And every coaching session revolves around top talent. In fact, we just had a B player who was what I call an inflatable A. If he pumped him up, he would do well. Well, he vacated, turned in his resignation, which is what they do in the culture. They leave quietly. And the team is so excited that, hey, we're going to go get an A player. And we talked about top grading an internal candidate as well as a bunch of external candidates who we're going to identify. So it's been fantastic. I can't talk enough about it. It's easy to use. I think, if you're considering this, you'll have to be active in it, meaning you have to be the front person, the cheerleader, because it's easy for the B players to sneak in there and for the system to regress. But it's been fantastic, and any questions people have, Brad and Chris and his team are terrific partners. I appreciate the contributions to the book from Brad and Vern, and I wrote the book to be a counter to top grading and to be kind of that people manual in scaling up. So I hope it's of value to you guys.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you, Rick. Okay, all right. I promised everybody we would not go any longer than necessary. Everybody is super busy, and you've been on for 3/4 of an hour. Just have one question, but I'm going to give you my personal email address, so it doesn't have to go through Dana. So this is really clever, by the way. It's besmart at topgrading.com. You get it? Be smart. And I'm usually saying that's really clever. Then someone says, "Wait a minute, top grading is supposed to weed out the BSers." Wait, those are your initials, BS, right? Yeah. Thank you. So the question, actually, someone emailed me last night, was a client should fire 2 managers. What's the best way to do that? And I think, Rick, you just alluded to it, and so did I. You start with, well, I'll give you the punchline first. They fire themselves. I think, Rick, you just said, if people are handled properly, they just quietly find another job. All right. So if you have the job scorecard, which this should be updated every year, what are the accountabilities for that job? Maybe it's sales, or what, it doesn't make any difference what it is. Then the person is falling short of what you're holding them accountable for. Otherwise, you wouldn't conclude they should leave. All right. So the idea is clear accountabilities. They said, the sales rep said, I can sell $1 million in 2017. You know, it's 3 months into it, and they're only at 150,000 or whatever it is. Okay, after 3 months, and falling short. In larger companies, it's even easier. If there are 10 sales reps and 9 are just blowing it away, the economy's coming back, and there's one's a horrible laggard, then that one sticks out like a sore thumb. But the concept fits anyway. They know they're not achieving the accountabilities they said they would achieve. So you talk with them. All right, is there anything I can do to help? Any training, any coaching, anything else I can do to help? And within the context of, all right, your goal is $1 million. Are you going to get there or not? By mid-year, it's pretty obvious they're not going to get there. So it's just a frank discussion. Just I need to have someone who can achieve that $1 million in this job. So quietly you just go look for another job. They find another job, because it's a hell of a lot easier to find another job when you have another job. So people, even C players, are sharp enough to read the handwriting on the wall. Think of Scott Clausen at Culligan. He comes in, clear accountabilities. Within months, it was obvious to half his team. No, and we were just growing incrementally and tweaking this and that with our dealers and Culligan. I was fine, but I know I'm not going to be around all that long. And he would personally have the frank discussions with them. And sounds like the guy from, there's nothing personal in this, but he is particularly good at that, saying, okay, take a day here or there, let's keep it kind of quiet. So, the executive manager leaves, you have the going away party at lunch and so forth. That's the way it ought to be. It's sort of like the Olympics, right? Or the Super Bowl. You got to put the points on the scoreboard. If you're not doing it, if you can't kick, the field goals, you're not going to have a job. It's no great, surprise. But it's also absolutely fair. I have a meeting in a couple of weeks with a top executive in a global insurance company, and he knows he's in trouble, asked to go through the what we call an executive coaching process, where there's a top grading interview with me, followed by a talk with the chairman CEO and his peers for about a half hour on the phone. Then there's a survey of about 26 items, in this case tailored to him, and I have all the information. It comes back, there's a vote of no confidence in him from all angles. And love him, by the way. He's just a terrific, wonderful person. He just is not doing the job. And and frankly, in this case, the senior team is super, super bright. These are like Jack Welch, Bob Rubin at Citigroup and Goldman and so forth. Super, super, super bright. He's not. And when I meet with him, I can tell him, I'm kind of in your category. I don't think they would hire me full time at name of company, because when these guys are in meetings, they function with 140 IQ points at warp speed. I can't keep up. And so anyway, I think it'll go smoothly. He'll quietly find another job. I know exactly the type of job that he should go for. It'll be a regional, not a global, but a regional insurance company in his country, which happens not to be the U.S. So anyway, that's the answer. I don't know, anything you'd add to that, Rick, for how to fire people and not have it be disruptive or seem mean or anything?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you asked. I'm prepping for an interview at 3:30, and I hope that question comes up. I think the humanity in this, Brad, and I applaud you guys for really, drawing the way this is, in an A-player culture, the aspiration is to be an A player, and A players crave to work with other players, people you want to be in your foxhole. And with that clear accountability, you either did it or you didn't. And, they realize that. And, they end up being happier elsewhere. And we run into people in the market all the time. And I'm kind of right in the midst of this. And they, will tap me and say, Rick, good to see you. You know what? I'm doing this now. I'm really happy. And, they almost thank you, which is fantastic. So, the aspirations to be an A will, as coaches, we always want to coach up people to be an A. It's like sports, though. If you can find a better player for similar talent, and we tell people up front, if we can find better talent for similar money, we're going to interview them. And everybody knows that, and they bring their A game, and they're always striving to be better. And it's a very fair, very transparent, and it works very well for the bottom line. And people are happy, and then we bonus them, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's one, so we're going to go to the full hour, I think, because I want your opinion on this too, Rick. There's an exception to everything. Don't hire someone who is fired for dishonesty. And this was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal years ago, where recommended someone who had really, really turned over a new leaf, and he had 10 years of just top integrity in the financial services company. Well, I'll tell you what it is. He became the chairman and CEO of UBS. Here's the exception. I've worked with several owners of companies who were not A players at the time, not even B players at the time, and I obviously can't tell you who they are, but C players who, because they own the company, I could work with them just as you could, Rick, or other coaches. Surround them with A players whom they can trust, who will support them. They own the company to support them and work well as team players. And one went from I'd say, it's this $100 million company to a like a $50 billion company. There are exceptions. Now, here's more the rule, that you have an entrepreneur who's full of ideas, who's a lousy manager, and at some point, in the best interest of the company, he should probably hire a professional manager. So you maybe seen people in both categories, Rick?
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things that Gazelle's coaches really do, I really, if you guys ever want to talk offline, there's a huge market for this, and they really look up to you, and they love when you conduct the interview and they can sit back and just evaluate. It takes a strap. People hate to interview because they get it wrong so often. We can usually coach up that manager, and they see better talent. In my book, I refer to it as, hey, you got to put premium gas in your Ferrari. And usually anybody with a modicum of intellectual intelligence, like, hey, I got to raise my game, and they'll come to you in a one-on-one and ask about how they can raise their leadership game. So, when you get better people, you got to raise your leadership quotient, and that's an exciting dynamic, and all benefit there. Hey, Brad, can I say one thing about what I see conducting interviews?
Sure.
Okay. I think you'd agree with this. You see a signature. It's like a fine fragrance or a fine wine. You see what the candidate says, you see what they omitted, and you really, as you do this more and more, you really get an A, B, C player signature. I've got an upcoming article that just needs placement where I go into that, and I refer to top grading. Over that longer, you'll get pushback at first about, well, why is the interview so long? a B player will break down. They can't fake it and make it for that mere time. For an A player, it's like a highlight reel. And I did want to address, while I can, I take on that objection about the time because, I mean, you say people are your most important asset, put your money where your mouth is, and, you know, the cost of a mishire, which, you know, Brad's website is a great calculator. He was kind enough to let me use it on my website. The numbers don't lie, and it's immense. You know, it could be easily $250,000 or more. It makes sense. And what we actually do is get all the leadership team, with me leading the interview, to run the interview, and then we debrief afterwards. And it is a celebration of talent, and we very, very rarely get wrong. Of doing about 300 plus assessments, I feel like we got it wrong 7 times. Yeah, and that's good. Much better even the 85% that Brad quoted. I mean, you really, really get a signature for the A player.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, absolutely. The biggest time saver is the top grade. Yeah, the interviews are long, but cleaning up after mishires takes a hell of a lot longer. Rick, thank you so much.
Little secret, a 3-hour interview feels like it's an hour and a quarter because the candidate is so good.
But because with a pre-screening, using the intellectual property, you know, the snapshot and phone screen and so forth, yeah, you get A players in there, and it's a walk down memory lane, and it is fun. It is interesting. I've done 6,500. They're all interesting, and it goes by at warp speed. It's fast. You have to keep the tempo going, and you just get this clearer and clearer understanding of it. I like the idea that, you know, the signature becomes clearer and clearer. Final comment. Thank you all for being on this. Encourage you to encourage your clients to embrace top grading. Get a license. Please don't let them copy the forms and guides and so forth. It has that little copyright signature on there. But the only way they can get the snapshot, obviously, is to have a license. It'll save them a tremendous amount of time. They'll only talk with sharp, honest candidates, so they could be doing them a favor. Email me with any questions you have, and look forward to having another webinar with maybe some more success stories in a few months. Thank you very much. So long.